Hi everyone, welcome to THT, and today we're going to talk about the last 2 weeks of Planetary Qualifier's results for set 6. So usually I don't cover the last few weeks of Planetary Qualifiers because at this point the meta is pretty figured out and there's not really many big tournaments to prepare for. And we usually try to transition into the next set, but in this case it's a little bit special because the sector qualifier Munich is happening this weekend and will be the last big tournament, almost on the last possible weekend possible before the pre-release of Legend of the Force. I think it's on the same weekend as the pre-release actually, which is very weird and pretty unfortunate in my opinion, but it is what it is, and that means there's a significant amount of people who are preparing for this event, and I think this is a good moment to take a look at the meta and see what are the kind of decks that you're going to be wanting to prepare for in preparation to the Munich Sector Qualifier coming this weekend. Big thanks to Card Market for sponsoring this video. And we're going to move on first by taking a look at the winners of week 12. So here we got some basically really diverse meta, as we've seen a wide variety of different decks that have been performing, but as you can see, a huge dominance of green bases here. Pretty much every single winners has a green base to some degree. We've been knowing this for a while, but green bases are the best base in the game. But the cool thing here is that we're seeing every single variant of green bases. We're seeing the regular one, the ECL, the Data Vault, the Force base, and so pretty much all the green base that I've seen play, meta plays I've seen are making a top 8 performance here. And as you can see here, the meta is extremely mid-range. We got a Kira here, which is control mid-range. We got an Aiden Virtual Hard Control. We got, everything else is pretty much just mid-range. Some more aggressive than others, but very mid-range meta. And if you look at week 13, there are a lot fewer tournaments, but once again, 3 green bases decks, and once again, pretty mid-range, with the exception of Sabine. If you look at the top 8 of week 12, we're seeing the trend of Han Solo Command coming out on top alongside Han Solo Greenfall, so we're still very much in the Han meta, which I think would be a good way to summarize this metagame. Is basically Han 1 and Han 2 are the 2 most played deck, and it's interesting because it hasn't really been so much the case in Bilbao, where the Han 1s did not do particularly well in this event. But overall, if you zoom out and you take a wider look at the different PQs, and if you take a look at Portland as well, you will see that Han 1 is very much there. So as you can see, and Han 1 Green has definitely taken. Now on top of Han 1 Green, we also the big news on Bilbao compared to before is that we're seeing, of course, aggressive version of Han 2 being represented here with Han 2 ECL. Mother Talzin, of course, something to do with Bilbao, is having a strong impact on the meta, and we're seeing some Kira. Data Vault, despite this deck, hasn't really performed in the big stage. Kira Data Vault is still very much a deck that is seeing consistent amount of results in Planetary Qualifier. We see also Yoda Green, which was a deck that initially we showed with Stim, having some really good success. Boba definitely taking a back seat compared to what he used to be, but still very much there. It's not a surprise considering how much he displays. Data Vault also seeing a little bit of success as well. Gar Saxon ECL, I think it's a really good meta for it. The Data Vault is still represented. Quinlan Tarkenton is still a very strong deck, even though it's not nearly as good as it used to be. It's now more of a set 2 deck. We are now seeing 2 Sabine Yellow, and both of them playing Navan Village, which is interesting. And then the rest is just very diverse. Grand Admiral Thrawn Data Vault, I think this is probably my biggest surprise here. Only one Grand Admiral Thrawn Data Vault making results in week 12, which is surprising because Thrawn Data Vault is, in my opinion, a very powerful deck. And it's a deck that it's not great against aggro. Aggro is definitely its weakness, but it doesn't auto lose to aggro. But it doesn't do great against Han 2 ECL, which is definitely a weakness, but it's not like an auto-lose matchup, so it's kind of surprising to see him doing worse than Kira Data Vault, in my opinion. So, and then we got a couple of rogue decks that we're probably going to cover in this video. If you go into week 13, we're seeing Cat Bay making a return, Boba Data Vault making a return. We're seeing those results far more different because you can see that the Bilbao meta is not having nearly as big of an impact. Antu ECL is taking a bit of a backseat. It's still up there. Mother Talzin also taking a bit of a backseat. But obviously far fewer tournaments as well to draw from. And Grand Admiral Thrawn Data Vault still not doing particularly amazing, which is interesting. Now we're going to take a closer look at the different lists that won the event in the past 2 weeks. So we're covering specifically week 12 and week 13. So basically the 2 weeks after Bilbao, basically. And we're going to start first with Saganne, or whatever that's pronounced. Playing a Mother Talzin, coming out first of his Planetary Qualifier with Mother Talzin. The deck is very much what you would expect. The only kind of surprise to me is that he's only playing 2 copies of No Disintegration. For me, No Disintegration was really the highlight of the list that won Bilbao. It's really a very, very powerful card, specifically in this deck. But it's not shocking to only see 2. Like, it's not like the most important card of the deck by any means, but it's, yeah, only 2 copies is a little bit surprising in my opinion. It's a card that has proven to be really powerful against a wide variety of decks. But yeah, the rest of the deck is really much what you would expect. There's just not much to say about it. It's pretty classic Mother Talzin red. Moving on, we got the winner of PQ Madrid, won by Queseda, and he came out here with a Kira Daredevil list with a lot of ambush, playing in the full package of Agent Callus, alongside the 8th brother, Agent Callus. If people are wondering why Agent Callus sees plays in Kira but basically nowhere else, I think it's pretty much because of how it combines with the flip ability. The main issues of Agent Callus is like it's a 5 cost unit that basically has only 4 attacks, so it doesn't really kill much. Most of the units at that stage of the game basically don't die to a 4 attack ambush unit. So it is kind of like very awkward in most decks to be running Agent Callus. However, in Kira, it's a different story because when Kira deploys, of course, it halves the HP of every single unit in play, making it a lot easier to actually get value with Agent Callus, can actually come into play and kill stuff. The other reason why Agent Callus is really good for Kira is because Kira is a control deck, but it's not a control deck that doesn't have access to many card draw. The only real card draw engine that we have in the deck is Pershing. And yeah, that's not really consistent enough. Like, you don't, especially in the 60 card deck, you're not going to find it every time. FFG has been reluctant in printing card draw engine, card draw control cards. So Agent Callus is another way you can draw card. It comes to play, almost immediately draws a card as it comes to play, as most units in the game are unique, and sometimes it draws way more than one card. So yeah, specifically in that deck, it's really solid card. Yeah, so 8th brother is a bit more surprising. I guess it does fill up upon in the curve, because otherwise you don't really have 6-drop. Vader is not a real 6-drop because most likely you want to combine it with Timely Intervention, so it's most likely going to be a 7 or 8-drop, depending on if you're paying it for 1 or for 2. And the rest of the deck is pretty much classic. He's playing the 3 copies of Ogdo Bogdo, which is not something we've seen very often. So Ogdo Bogdo is kind of cool with Kira because you play it on turn 2, and then on turn 3 you can damage it and shield it, so it becomes a 5/3 shielded unit for 3, which is really strong. I mean, for 4-ish, because you did spend an extra resource doing it. It's not spectacular, but it can be quite good at claiming the board against in the Grand Arena, and that means that also this deck can sometimes have the option to race, which is not something you can always do with control deck, but this deck can do that sometimes. It's kind of also cool to see the Graceful Purgles being played in the sideboard. It's not always an amazing card, but it's good against space aggro, and the fact that you can shield it with Kira is a big deal, and makes it a lot more survivable in some situations. Moving on, we got the PQ Santiago, won by Javier, probably if it's pronounced the Spanish way. Yeah, Kira Data Vault is a deck that has been hanging around. It's a deck that has basically received tremendous amount of upgrades in the new set. There's just so many cards that fits perfectly well in Ray. Obviously, Owen Lars is one of them. Gungi is another good one. Yaddle, Keller and Beck. So many amazing cards that fit right in Ray without Ray having to make much changes to the deck. And despite that, Ray the Vault has not really done as well in Legion of the Force compared to Jump to Light Speed. And I think the reason is because the deck is just not really well positioned. The meta is very mid range. The deck doesn't really do well against hand 2. It just gets outpaced and outvalued by Kia di Mundi. I think Kia di Mundi, and generally speaking, like those mid range decks that are able to get into the late game and can outvalue Ray and outpace Ray with Hantu's ability, has been a struggle for Ray. And that's the reason you're seeing in the sideboard here 3 copies of Terrata Tech in the sideboard, which has helped Ray kind of evening out the odds against those matchups. But overall, just Ray has not been well positioned, and that's the reason why she has been struggling, despite being a very strong deck that has received a lot of upgrade. But it's still obviously a very powerful deck, and I can definitely see meta where she's really good. Obviously, if the meta is very aggro, she likes it. If the meta has a lot of Boba Data Vault, she loves it too. So those are kind of things that are the things she likes. I really like the build. It is a bit less kind of innovative than the build that Yosera has been putting out. Yosera has been really playing a very personal version of the deck, but there's still a few ideas from Yosera's deck which has definitely been replicated here. For example, playing both the Grappling Burgles and the Graceful Burgles in the sideboard, that kind of thing. But overall, the build is a bit more kind of grounded, a bit more classic. Moving on from the PQ's Kovd, from Sweden, it was won by Filip Pudak, playing as an green. A pretty standard build, and not much to say about it. Just the good old Han green, 50% space, 50% ground, with upgrades coming from Legion of the Force. Yeah, it's just a really solid deck. A couple of interesting sideboard cards with the Grogu's, which is really strong against the Boba Devault and against the Cat Banes, that kind of thing. And Cunning out of Aspect, something I haven't seen in a while, but can be really powerful. Something interesting that he's not playing, I don't know if it's a standard or not, he's not playing the Oman main deck, he's playing them in the sideboard. And he's also playing Fennec Shand as a way to ambush and one-shot, notably the Anakins without dying. This is something that the Han Solo cannot do. And only playing 1 copy of Han Solo, actually, which is interesting, considering that the meta is just more adapted to Enfys Nest, actually, here, seeing play instead, which is very interesting. So definitely a different mix of 7-drop to what we used to. Moving on, we got from PQ Manif, we have John Ellis from California, USA, and he did win his PQ with Han to blue. Pretty standard build here. There's not much to say about it. Just playing Shansindula in the main, which is okay. And then yeah, this build is very classic. It's pretty cool build. Pretty strong deck. Has been the highest performing deck even without 4 throws. Still a deck that's performing consistently well. He's playing the full package of Anakin Skywalker, but actually only plays 3 out of aspect cards to fuel the Anakin. So not the most consistent Anakin we've seen, but okay. Moving on, we got the Stockport PQ. We got Big O Notation winning with Bosk ECL. So yeah, this is the build that the Super Racers have designed and put on their Patreons. So I encourage you to join the Discord and to join the Enigma Discord and subscribe to their Patreon if you want to see those sweet deck lists. And Big Annotation has been performing here with this Bosk ECR. This is an aggro build of Bosk, basically going double 1-drop opening to overwhelm the opponent early on, and then get himself overwhelm the opponent with Bounty on Tukori, double redeem on Bosk. Can really put you tremendously far ahead, but still has the option to ramp with the price on your head, and can fight in the late game with the Devastators. So a pretty counterintuitive build, but a build that does work and has some pretty impressive openings, and can do really well in the late game. So pretty cool build, and Next, we got the PQ La Laguna from Yoda, which was won by Yoda Jedi Temple. This is the build very similar to the one that Tim has been putting out with the ramp. And this build, once again, not playing You're My Only Hope. So that's very interesting. It is something that we've seen Avastator do in he did top 8 in PQ Bilbao without You're My Only Hope, and looks like Mr. Bellum here is elected to do the same. And this is something that is shocking to me. I think that, like, You're My Only Hope is a card that can be sometimes inconsistent, and it's not good at every stage of the game. But the thing is, like, when it's good, it just wins you game. So, and it wins you game at the moment where Yoda would be the most vulnerable. This is the early stage of the game. So to me, it's a great card, and I'm shocked that people are not running it. But they're doing well with it, so why not? Maybe You're My Only Hope is not the way to go for this deck, which is interesting. Then we have the PQ Alphen Handen Rin from the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, won by Rivarnur, and he played Aiden Data Vault. I think this was the only PQ of the last 2 weeks that was won by a hard control deck. Hard control deck still very much struggling, but Aiden sometimes managed to get through the cracks and get some results done. It has a unique approach to the meta, and I think the main strength of Aiden Data Vault in this meta is the fact that people simply just ignore hard control. So sometimes it can actually perform. The other quality of Aiden Green and what makes her stronger than the other hard control decks is that she does have late game inevitability with Reinforcement Walker, Devastators on top of the regular suspect, the usual suspect, Avenger, Annihilators, and Snoke. And this has been the struggle for hard control, is that there's a lot of good ways to kind of delay the game, but there's not really any ways to gain inevitability in the later stage of the game. And I feel like Green does this better than the other decks. And Data Vault is also a great asset for out control because you like to have extra HP on your base. And because games are very long, you don't really care about the less consistent, to hit the cards less consistently, because the longer the game goes, the likely you're going to be able to find those cards anyways. Sorry. So moving back to the deck list here, he's playing a lot of top end, lots of removal. Yeah, not much to say. I think it's pretty much what we've been seeing from Hayden before, and it's a deck that still does perform relatively well. But it has, of course, immense weaknesses, and it hasn't been able to perform consistently. I would say it's a deck that is tier 2, even borderline tier. Yeah, it's tier 2 deck, basically. Moving on, we got the PQ Springfield that was in Illinois, USA, won by Noah Hammer, and he was running the AN to ECL, pretty much the list that the Super Racers have been running. That Beton and Sip from Team Enigma won the PQ Bilbao's. Sorry, did really great performance, double top 8 performances in a top 2 and a top 4 performances in PQ Bilbao. Not much to say, that's the same list that we've seen over and over again. And the PQ Castle in Germany from Skullfire. Skullfire has been won by a more mid-range, this is the mid-range hand Data Vault. With a much more mid-rangey, we see, of course, the more expensive cards, the Wreckers, the Mace Windows, the Cray Dragons. Even playing Black One as a turn 1 play, which is definitely surprising. I guess you can have Poe relatively consistently. You're playing 6 of your Poe, I guess, but it's a bit surprising because Black One without Poe is really mediocre. But he's also playing 4 cards, I believe in, which is also surprising because he's playing a very mid-range build, and then he's playing 4 cards, I believe in, which is that is really interesting. So this card is obviously very, very, very aggro. And there's a huge deck building constraint in running this card because you have to run a lot of heroism card to make him work. And there's quite a few non-heroism cards in the deck. He's playing 3-time intervention, the Cray Dragons, the Sham Sindula, the Traitorous. Okay, interesting build. Moving on to PQ Bellevue. So we're seeing here Han Blue Force, which Either deck that was kind of like the only real new deck that we've seen compared to the post PQ, so the fourth throw meta and the non-fourth fourth throw meta. This was pretty much the only deck that was really truly new that we've never seen before. And this deck has not performed as well. I think it has strong weaknesses, but it's a solid deck. I think it's mostly vulnerable to space decks. I think it struggles against space decks. It has the Falcon, and then it has the Entrench, and that's about it. Then the rest is a little bit of a struggle. It's not able to race, and it doesn't have the cheese that the green version can pull out, just going with a space unit plus Chewbacca and just run away with the game with that. It can't do the same things, and it does make up for this with some stronger 6 drops with Anakin with a double -3 -3 that is much more efficient, better 7 drop with Luke Skywalker, but it doesn't seem to be enough. At least it's not, the deck hasn't been able to perform result as consistently as the other ones. Very interesting that he's playing 2 copies of Agrivian Parliamentarian in the sideboard. I mean, it's pretty good against other Anakins, I guess, and it's good against Kylo, but that's about, yeah, now that Kylo is pretty much out of the picture, it's surprising to see Agrivian Parliamentarian still seeing play here. Maybe in the local meta there's a lot of Kylo attacking now. Maybe there's a lot of Bottom Network players in this area, I don't know. Well done by Zach, and we're moving on now to the PQ London with Big Annotation, who managed to go with a second PQ win on the same weekend. I don't think we've never seen anybody being able to. We've seen people, of course, being able to win PQs back to back, so weekend and then the weekend after wins another PQ, but 2 PQ wins on the same weekend, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. I don't think we've never seen that. So obviously, massive congratulations to Big Annotation. Obviously, there's only very specific areas in the world where you can pull this off, because the Great Britain and England is an area where there's a huge density of PQs. So it's a great area to when you can actually play 2 PQs on the same weekend without too much of a stretch, which I think is pretty incredible. But even then, even if you do have access to that many PQs, winning 2 PQs back-to-back like this on the same weekend is extremely impressive. PQs, whenever you go all the way down to the finals, are very, very long events. So an incredible performance. And he's once again running a Super Racers list, an Enigma team list. This is the Han ECL from Sip and Beton. There might be a few differences in there, but I don't think so. I think it's most likely like the same version. If people are wondering why IG-11 is in the deck, by the way, I've already explained this, but I'm happy to explain again. It's basically an additional copies of Podamron. It's a great way to snatch Han 1, for example. Han 1 deploys on 4/6. You deploy, you ambush with it, it kills it and stay alive. So it's kind of like additional copies of Podamron, if you will. And yeah, so Big Annotation won in the final versus Ylsera, playing the same deck. So massive performance here from him, and I think he's established himself as the best player in the UK with this performance. Moving on now to the tournament Bourgoin-Jallieu in France. Bourgoin-Jallieu, I guess. That's how it's pronounced. Don't know the city, so I'm not 100% sure. Won by Arbo74, and he brought Gar-Saxon ECL. So Gar-Saxon ECL is still a deck that we are seeing performing basically relatively consistently. I think it's well positioned. It's well positioned in the current meta because it really loved the Bilbao result, because I think Gar-Saxon ECL is a deck that does really well against both Antu ECL and Talzin. So it's a deck that really enjoyed the latest tournament. It's a mid-range heavy meta, and Gar-Saxon does incredibly well in this kind of meta. Gar-Saxon doesn't like playing against aggro, specifically Sabine, and doesn't like to play against soft and hard, especially hard control, but loves to play against those mid-range decks. So it's a deck that that can do really well. So talking specifically about this version, so I think a couple of originalities is like he's playing the Victor 3, which is a card that can be really powerful, but you do need to have a space unit and a ground unit in order to get full advantage of the unit. And then you equip this on Infinite 4, you get +2/+1, and then you give an experiment, which is another +2/+1. So basically, you're spending 2 resource or 1 resource. Is it? Yeah, I think you're spending 2 resources, and you give 2 +2/+1 tokens to 2 different targets, which is very powerful. But it is quite situational, as you kind of need to have 2 units, one of them being a space unit, for this to work. So personally, have had trouble running him and being successful with him consistently. But I think he's a powerful unit. He's not playing. He decided to basically not play Owen Lars. I mean, Owen Lars is incredible with Gar Saxon, but he has a strong downside. And the downside is like, to make him good, you need to be playing a significant amount of force units in your deck. Basically, the force unit that you always play are the Vaders and the Maul, and the Secretive Sage. That's basically 9, but that's not really enough to make him consistent. You have to play a few extra force units in order to make him worth it. So hasn't been able to find out. So he's running the minimum. He's not running the Vaders. That makes sense. So he's running the Gar Saxon, but in the sideboard, which is interesting. Personally, I think Gar Saxon is incredible and should be playing in the main. But yeah, and he's playing some Avengers in the main, which is definitely interesting. It's hard to get up to 9 resources with this deck, from my experience. He's playing Legal Authority in the main, which is, in my opinion, is a great card in this deck. I prefer it in the sideboard personally, but it's a great card. He's also running Fail the Dragon, which is surprising. It's okay card in this deck. It's not amazing. And then he's playing the Darksaber, which is a great card if you can find the right spot to play it. Moving on now to the next deck, it is going to be the Montova PQ with Han Grain. Very list that is very, very close to the list we've seen before. Now completely giving up on the Han Solo 7, emphasizing on Enfys Nest. I think the latest trend of the Han Solo decks has been to focus on Enfys Nest as a more flexible 7-drop that can deal with a variety of situations, rather than going for the more ground-based 7-drop like Han Solo. So definitely interesting to see that new trend coming in from the Han 1 green, sorry, and the rest of the deck is pretty much what you would expect. So we're gonna move on now to the PQ launching won by another Gar Saxon, and this list, as you can see, is very different. He's running. So this one is much closer to my list. Playing the Owen Lars, playing the clients in the main, playing the Vaders in the main. Only running 2 copies of Maul. This is surprising, and he's running instead at the expense of Anakin Skywalker. And he's also playing the I forgot the name of this card, but it's the +1/+2 upgrade that keeps coming back into play. I found the card to be a little bit slow. He's also playing the Supremacy Tie, which is not the 3-drop I would want to play personally, but I guess it's decent pickup from Vader. But yeah, the deck is I feel like he's making changes because he was basically struggling in Space Aggro. In my view, the best way to deal against Space Aggro is Client and Legal Authority, and then ECL on Shuttle is really, in my opinion, and then a lot of Barrage, and that's the best way to deal with Space Aggro. I don't think you need to run Space Sentinels like Graceful Purgles to really deal with that. But okay. Moving on from the PQ Kansas City, won by Mickey DHS. He was running Han 2 blue, and his deck is extremely classic, running the Red 5 in the main, probably because it's really, really good in the mirror match. Running the Marine, which has been more and more popular. This deck is really taking full advantage. So we have, between the Podamron and Marine, we have multiple ways to discard villainy cards to activate the double -2/-3 from Anakin. So he's really kind of embracing the Anakin synergies, but interesting that he prefers to play the Force Lightning over the Power Dark Side. Moving on from the Boba Data Vault, this deck is so much play, it has to make some results every once in a while, even though I don't think the deck is nearly as good as it used to be. But this was the PQ pool from Great Britain, won by Joshi 2070. This is a pretty classic build. He's running 1 copy of Vader. Yeah, this is pretty classic. He's running the escort fighters in the main, so really basically prepared for the other space aggro, also playing the full package of disorienting fighters. The Doran gunship as the 5-drop for the Boba flip. It's very much is a classic version of Boba. I think he's playing fewer ground units, I feel like, than the average Boba Data Vault, but that's pretty much it. That's just the Boba Data Vault we've seen performing for a while. A very strong deck, but also a deck that can kind of lose to itself. It's a deck that really wants to play things on curve up to resource 6. So it's a deck that can sometimes have consistency issue because it does not always find like the card to play on curve, basically. From the PQ Zaragoza in Spain, was won by Vanir. Also won playing Han Blue Force. His build is a Marine build again, Anakin Skywalker. Playing some Jada's Lightsaber, I think is the main originality of his list. He's running the Tranquility Loop in the sideboard for control matchup, which in my opinion is, if you think the meta is very controllable, why not, but I don't even think it's needed. I think I just think a Han 2 Blue, generally speaking, just really well against control. The Owen Lars, the Kia di Mundi, the Cassian, the value provided by those cards, the speed provided by Hunter's ability, the Krayt Dragons on top curve, all this is just a nightmare to deal with for hard control. Moving on, we got a third PQ won by Gar ECL. So I'm honestly really happy to see Gar ECL doing so well, because it's obviously has been my baby. It's the very first in-depth deck I've done on my channel. It's the deck I've been picking up really early on. I pretty much invented the deck. I mean, I'm not pretending that I'm the only one who got the idea. Multiple people had the same idea, but I was definitely one of the first who built the deck, and I was one of the first to post content about this deck. I think I was the first posting content about this deck. So yeah, I'm hoping that a lot of people got inspiration from what the content I've been putting out, and seeing the deck succeeding is always I'm always feeling good about this, and feeling great that people are having success with build that I've put out, and maybe then improved upon the builds and stuff. So this list is pretty much the same list that we were talking about earlier. He plays the Owen Lars. He's not playing the Vader main. He's playing Anakin instead, and he's playing the Legal Authority. And it's nice to see this deck is actually performing better after the 4th role ban, just because of the way the meta has been evolving, basically. Only 2 copies of Overwhelming Barrage is the only thing I'm not a big fan of. I guess he's going for a 2-2 split instead of a 3-1 split. I still think that Overwhelming Barrage is too important to not be played as a 3 of. If you're not playing 3 of, at least play a 3rd copy in the sideboard, please. Moving on to the PQ Chengdu in China. This is nice to see once again PQ being played in Asia. Unfortunately, this one only got 20 players. Star Wars Unlimited is still not really doing great in China, but this one was won by Royal V. No, I don't know how to pronounce this. This is a Cat Bane double 1-drop aggressive build. Not much to say about it. I don't think I've ever seen Sanctuary Shuttle before in Cat Bane. So this is an interesting innovation here coming from. He's also playing Dengar, which I don't think is very common, because obviously you're not playing any bounty. So basically this is literally just a 2-2 for 1 in this deck. It's a 2-2 for 1 Underworld. Okay, interesting. So there's a couple of innovation in there, actually. A couple of interesting things going on. Moving on, we got the PQ Paris won by Gabs. Congratulations to him, because this probably was not an easy PQ to win, with all the great players that he had to face. And he was running a good old Sabine ECL. The only originality of his build is like he's only playing 2 copies of 4 cards, I believe in, which is shocking, because in my opinion this card is still incredible. And I mean, to be fair, he's running quite a few. He's running 6 cards that are not heroism nor so non-heroism card. That's more than the average. Playing the confiscates in the main, interesting. I wonder. We're not in the meta where upgrades are like super. I guess sometimes some people play like lightsabers and stuff like General's Blade and General's lightsabers, and that can be a big pain in the deck. It's also really good against Entrench, which is seeing. I guess Entrench is seeing so much play right now. It's just really good to save your force unit. The MC30 main, we always see those cards in the sideboard. People don't expect it in the main, so that's probably kind of a way to take people by surprise. It's great against Boba, so I think that's the main reason to do this. The upgrade mix is interesting. We're seeing both Mace Windu's and Yoda's lightsaber being played. One would think that Yoda's lightsaber is always the better one because it gives you more attack, which is more important for a deck like Sabine. But there's a situation where getting this extra health bonus can really be a difference maker. So he's going for a mix here to have the option of playing one or the other depending on the situation, I guess. And that is a really cool list. Also, his sideboard is quite interesting. The Chewbacca's are going in sideboard. So he's preferring to play the wing leader over the Chewbacca. That's interesting. Then we got an open fire in the sideboard, which is very interesting. I mean, it's probably against the other space aggro decks. Mostly, I think it's against Han 1. Blue leaders inside. And Yularen inside. I wonder in much matchup do you want to sideboard Yularen? Probably against a damage based deck, like probably against Cad Bane, like to mess up with the math, like Cad Bane or Hantu, or Boba, that kind of thing. Really cool build. Really cool build. So moving on now to the PQ San Francisco, California, US, won by Halloween. It is indeed soon Halloween, so this Friday. So very fitting name. Extremely classic build, not much to say. Went down to 1 Marine. Marine is kind of like the card that we're seeing. Some people play 1, some people play 2, some people play 3, some people play 0. It's still a bit up in the air. We also see our Avenger in the sideboard. It's something that we've seen before. I think Jonas, who made top 8 at the regional championship, Bilbao, was playing 2 copies of Avenger in the sideboard. I think it's like a really powerful late game card against mid-range and soft control decks. And the idea is that yes, you're playing the aspect penalty because of the but you can also give it a discount, so you can play it for 10 basically. The thing though is that Avenger is kind of if you open it's also another like villainy card you can discard to feed up to Anakin, which is a little bonus. He's also playing, I forgot the name of the card. It's a 4/6, and when it comes to play, it deals ping damage. So I think it's really powerful against swarm decks with a lot of 1 health units, and it's definitely the kind of card that people don't necessarily expect. I think it's mostly attack against Vader Yellow, I would say. Then we got PQ Grosseto in Italy. Once again, hand to Blue Force, and we're seeing that card being played again. See it. Can ping multiple units. Can be really strong. I think it's also really good against Cad Bane, I would say, especially since you can play it 1 turn earlier with Han. That's another way. It's also a force unit, which is nice. Moving on to the rest of the video, I just want to let you know that you can pick up Anakin Skywalker for only 28 euro for Card Market. I don't understand why the price of this card is going down. It's pretty much the best card of the set. At least the best legendary of the set, and by a long shot it sees plays in a lot of different decks. So very surprising that its price keeps going down. So pick it up, because I think this card is going to be even more relevant after rotation. Moving on now to the spicier deck, the deck that kind of like out of the ordinary that managed to make a performance this weekend. We're going to start with the deck of Broach, which was playing an Obi-Wan Blue Force deck. And so he's playing the Obi-Wan like mid-range basically with a bunch of ways to use the Force. Only 2 copies of Yoda's, which in my view, like one of the main advantage of running Obi-Wan Blue is to be running Yoda, because Obi-Wan as such as, like, Obi-Wan is even strong, sorry, Yoda is even stronger in this deck than it is in the Yoda Green deck, which is the primary deck where Yoda has been featured in, because Obi-Wan has such an easier time spending the Force, because he has a built-in ability that allows him to do this, while Yoda, the Yoda leader, doesn't have that. So I feel like this card is just incredible in this deck. But maybe he had to make a choice. He preferred to have a bit more diversity. What an interesting card is like the 3 copies of the Ghost. So this card, as long as it's upgraded, it gives Spectre units Sentinels. We do are playing quite a few Spectre units. We're playing the Ezra, we're playing the Kanan. But that's about it. That's only 6 units. And it's easy to upgrade. The good thing is like you can actually upgrade. You play for 5, and then you can upgrade him on curve using Obi-Wan's ability. So it's an interesting synergy here between the Ghost and Obi-Wan that can give Ezra and Kanan's Sentinels, and those guys are pretty beefy, so giving them Sentinels is no joke. So that's very interesting. That is a really interesting piece of tech. Is it good enough to be featured as a 3 of? I don't know. Sometimes some players have a tendency to over-evaluate the innovations, like, oh yeah, this is because it's their baby, sort of their innovation is their baby. They have a tendency to think it's better than what it actually is, and so is it really like a synergy that is so powerful that it's deserving to be a 3 of in the deck, or is it something that that it's actually just, it's pretty powerful, but it's not like deserving of this 3 slots? I don't know. Especially since he's playing this over a 3rd copy of Luke Skywalker, the 3rd copy of Karen Beck, and that's very crazy. Another interesting thing as well is like he's playing Anakin Skywalker, but he has no way whatsoever to give him the double -3/-3. So it's basically just Anakin, just -3. I wonder if this is really that good. It probably, once again, a curve thing where he needed something on 6, and that's pretty much the best thing he plays. So it's pretty much just a curve aspect. And yeah, he's playing the Jedi Consular, so he can go Jedi Consular bananas in some matchups. The rest of the deck is pretty much what you would expect. I'm surprised that he's playing Shatterpoint over traditional removal like Felder Dragon. I understand that there's some card that Felder can dodge, but the thing is, like, in this deck, the Force is so precious to use to be able to use Obi-Wan's ability. Having to spend the Force to use a removal is kind of a pain. Only 2 copies of Shirut is also a surprise. So a lot of interesting decisions here in this build. Yeah, cool. It's a difficult deck to build. There's a lot of different options you have to consider, and you have to consider the curve as well. So moving on, we got from PQ, the Swedish PQ, we got a Snoke who managed to make top 8. It's actually the Snoke that eliminated Hamso Ambo. Hamso Ambo was about to make top 8, and he got knocked out by this very interesting Snoke deck. So this is a Snoke with some first order synergies. We see notably Captain Phasma being played, but Captain Phasma is that by far the best first order payoff that we have access in the game right now. We also playing the 1/4 that's exhaust unit when he attacks them. This guy becomes a 2/5 on turn 1 thanks to Snoke, so it's a card of Ice Bee Agent's also a great card in his deck. Comes to play, ping something, can remove a shield and then turn into a 2/4. One of the best cards you can play in Snoke. Is also playing all those 1-drops that becomes 3/2s in space. So this deck really trying to utilize what Snoke is good at, which is giving experience to 1-drops, and then basically turning into a relatively large unit when he deploys. I still think he's a little bit slow. This deck seems just a little bit slow, not particularly good in the late game. Like, in the late game you got a couple of cool things, but I love the Lurking Time Phantoms in the deck, of course. Lurking Time Phantoms is one of the best cards to give +1/+1 counters to it. So it seems like a really well-built deck. Do I think this deck is going to take over the meta? I don't think so. I don't think so, but it's definitely a solid deck. I'm just afraid it's just a little bit too fair, a little bit too slow, and a little bit too fair to be actually good. To actually be consistently good. That's what I mean. Moving on to a deck that has made top 8 multiple times actually this last 2 weekends, and that's the Podamron yellow full space deck. So you can see basically only running a couple of ground units just to put tremendous amount of pressure on the ground sometimes with Podamron and with the Smuggle Cassian. But for everything else, it just goes double 1-drop opening, Counter Spacer, Y-Wing, TIE Fighters, Counter Turncoat, that kind of thing. And then just and then play 2-drop, 3-drops, outmaneuver. It's just a good all space deck. Nothing particularly new. It's new in the sense that it's a leader combination that we haven't seen much of, but it's not new in the concept of the deck just being you go full space and then you try to race with outmaneuver and stuff and try to go wide is the strategy here. At the PQ Stockport, we saw a Piet Red making top 2, got knocked out in the final against Big Annotation. And so one is particularly interesting about his version of the deck is that he's running the Shamsindula in his build, which is, I guess it can be good against Han 1, and it can definitely take people by surprise, but most likely in this deck you're trying to do everything you can to ramp on turn 2. So I found this interesting on paper, but I just wonder how often he actually managed to make it work, because most likely you're going to be ramping yourself. So even if you're playing against another ramp deck, or even if you're playing against a Han 2, but the idea is pretty much to say, okay, this is kind of my other way to ramp if I don't find Resupply and Super Technician, but I wonder how often he managed to actually trigger it. The rest of the build is pretty much what you would expect. This we got a couple of Disloying Flying Fighters in the main. Only 2 copies of Planetary Bombardment, which is a bit surprising because Planetary Bombardment into Devastator is one of the strongest combo in the game, but it is true that Planetary Bombardment have a tendency sometimes to just stick in your hand, and is mostly an anti-control card, which is not very well represented in the meta. Also, it's interesting to see the Count Dooku being played here as well, which gives you a way to sacrifice your own Super Technician, which sometimes is a pain with the deck. Yeah, you get Super Technician sitting there, you can't kill your own, and it's just really annoying. You can do this with Count Dooku, I guess. He's playing the Turbo Laser Salvo in the sideboard. I'm not shocked by this. I think Turbo Salvo is an amazing card in this deck, but there's a certain matchup in which it's completely useless. But only one in the sideboard is a bit rough. I would most likely would have wanted to see more of them in the sideboard at least. But other than this, it's pretty much the build we've been seeing and loving. I'm personally a big fan of the control ship. This the one that gives Ray 2 to all droids. But yeah, that's the build, and this build is about to get a lot better with Secret of Power. So stay tuned for my upcoming videos about the updated deck list that I think are gonna get stronger with the new set. Also, I wanted to highlight another deck that has done really well in the last 2 weeks. There's a couple of top 8s by Sabine Yellow, and Sabine Yellow is taking some really aggressive stance to be super aggressive. One thing we see Black One Sing play, a really good card to give a pilot 2, especially he's playing R2D2, BB-8, Han Solo, so quite a few very cheap pilots. This is a kind of a 50-50 aggro space deck. I really like the Sabine Yellow that was running Namet Village and was trying to play the Bamboo Frick plus R2 opening, which I think is incredibly powerful in aggro. But this one is not going into that direction. This one is going a little bit more space, very aggro, with the Fleet Lieutenants and all that good stuff. So, and still playing the Dark Sabers. Why not? Because Dark Sabers ignore aspect penalty when it's played on a Mandalorian, and Sabine is a Mandalorian. Moving on to another deck that is actually more reminiscent to the... So it's also very similar to Sabine Yellow. It's another aggressive deck. This one using Lando and Tarkin Town. And playing the Bamboo Frick R2D2 package that we've been seeing in those yellow, white, red decks. And trying to go super wide, playing against a lot of smuggles. And obviously trying to abuse Lando's ability. to be super aggressive. So Orlando, he's been here for a while, but it's still a leader that every once in a while does a little results, does a little something. And this one he actually came number 2, which is not bad at all. Another leader that every once in a while does see some success. This time it's a Chancellor Palpatine Colossus control deck. I think the main innovation of that particular version of the deck is like he's running Colossus instead of the 30 HP base. I think running Colossus is very greedy because the thing is with this deck, this deck basically wins and loses in the first 2 turns in the game. It's a deck that you really need to find the specific cards, and this deck is just so incredibly greedy. He's basically playing only 6 Heroism 2-drops. He's playing 7 if you count the Fireball, so 7, which is not even close to be enough to basically play to have consistently a turn 2 play Heroism. And if you don't have a turn 2 play Heroism, you pretty much lose the game almost on the spot, because that means it's going to be really hard for you to flip your pap. I mean, I'm exaggerating a bit. You can play a turn 2, but even in terms of turn 2 play Heroism, it doesn't have that many of them. Like, it's only 1 blue leader, 1 Falcon. He's playing Ahsoka, which is interesting, I guess. It's good against double 1-drop opening. And if you're going to be missing your turn 1 play, you're going to be happy to play Ahsoka. So the proportions here are completely off. Like, also running Han Solo in a control build is very weird. This deck doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I'm gonna be honest, nothing makes sense here. Han Solo has nobody to attach it, so it's basically just gonna be a 4/5 ambush for 5, which is just not really good. He's running the Vader Shinfury combo, I guess. So obviously, once he gets into the late game stage of the game, he's a monster. But this version is just incredibly greedy. Like, I cannot understand by the life of me how he can make this work. He has to, and the fact that he's only starting the game with only 5 cards means that he's even less likely to find an actual thing to play in the first few turns in the game. It's just incredibly greedy build. I have no idea how he can win with this, but he did. Number 4 in London. Cool. Well done. Moving on to a deck that we've been seeing as well, and I haven't talked about it on my channel at all. It is the Vonreg yellow space aggro decks. To be honest, I haven't talked much about this deck because this deck is not really that interesting. It's just another space aggro, another variant of space aggro. But this one is in villainy, so I guess it's a little bit more unique. Opens up double 1-drop opening, get an early deploy on Major Vonreg, and put tremendous amount of pressure. Try to deploy Vonreg on the Lurking TIE Phantoms. Incredibly oppressive play. Another toxic pilot decks added to the menu, I guess. And then a couple of removals, couple of buzz spells, and that's the deck. Moving on to the number 2, and I'm really happy that finally someone managed to make Kanan Jarrus work. And this is once again Darth Silk. Silk, who has had an amazing season in Legion of the Force. I think he's won 2 PQs if I'm not mistaken. And now he's basically completing side quest. And the side quest for him was to basically manage to make a performance with Kanan. He didn't quite win the PQ, unfortunately. I think he lost in the final against Data Vault, which is surprising because I would think this is this deck should have a pretty decent matchup against Boba Data Vault, because it's as you can see, it's a very similar deck than Rey. So he should be doing okay against the Devil, but maybe the games were really wrong. So obviously, as you can see, he's not really embracing so much the value of Kanan. He's pretty much just building a Rey Daredevil deck and just put a couple of Spectres in them. Obviously, Loth Wolf amazing with Kanan, as you can. It's just a 3/3 turn you can shield over and over again. He's playing Ezra and Kanan, which are fine if they're shielded, but nothing special. But at least it gives you more chances to be able to deploy into a pretty strong leader deploy. But as you can see, only 9 creature slash Spectre in the entire deck. So needless to say, I don't think this is a very good deck. It's basically just Raided Evolves, but instead of playing Raided Evolve, we're playing Kanan, and then we're playing some Loth Wolves. That's basically it. I guess you do have chances to find those Spectre units relatively consistently thanks to Momothma, and Owen Lars can pick up both Ezra and Kanan, which means that you relatively... Oh, you also have the Sabine Masterpiece as well, I guess. But yeah, I'm not particularly impressed. I don't think this leader is really that good in this build. And there's definitely going to be a situation where he's going to deploy and not do much, because you won't have a Spectre unit in play. But that was a cool side quest, and probably if you want to have success with Kanan, probably build it as a Ray deck, and put some Loth Wolf in it, and it's probably the best way to go about it, which is a little bit sad for the leader, but it is what it is for now, until more creatures and specters are being added to the game, I guess. In PQ Paris, we also had a Qui-Gon Jinn Blue Force making a performance. Yalric managed to make a performance with this deck. We've seen this deck before, trying to emphasize on Force units that have a powerful when play effect. We see Ahsoka, Plo Koon is grade 1 as well, Itinerant Warriors, and it's a deck that behaves a little bit similarly to Han 1 Blue Force, but has some really powerful shenanigans that can happen. I still believe it's worse than Han Blue Force, but this build does have a couple of interesting things. He's playing out of aspect, as I have foreseen. I have no idea how he's playing this, because the thing is, like, it gives you cost reduction, but then you're playing out of aspect, so you basically it kind of cancels this out. And how are you supposed to predict what is on top of your deck? I guess you can do it with R2 and Ezra, but that seems really, really convoluted. I don't really see it. So if you guys know how he actually uses the as I've foreseen in this deck, I mean, be interesting to find out. Then yeah, he's also playing Om1 in the sideboard. I guess this has taken by surprise many people. It's really good against Om1 is actually a pretty good tech against Boba, because he will be able to snipe and kill like the unit that Boba is deployed into, so in some situation. With ambush, and then you're pretty likely to be able to play for 6. So it's a good in a similar way that MT30 ECL can be a good counter. Om1 can also do that job. It doesn't even require ECL to do it, which is great. Yeah, cool stuff. Only 1 copy of Tranquility is also kind of puzzling, because Tranquility almost always goes in pair, because the whole point of playing Tranquility is to play it as a loop against Heart Control. I guess in this case, he's just using it to bring back Anakin Skywalker's Plo Koon, I guess. Very, very strange build. And that's it. That's it for today. So let's take a look now, take an overall look of the meta. As you can see, so a lot of people have been calling out the fake diversity. And I think that a lot of people kind of overuse this argument, talking about the meta in Legion of the Force, but I think in this meta it's really obvious that this is fake diversity. But so as you can see here, if you look at the leaders in that has made top 8, you can see the meta is very, very diverse. We don't have a single deck that is above 10%. In terms of meta representation, which is incredibly healthy. It's very, very healthy. So there's a really wide variety of different decks. But if you look at all these decks, pretty much every single one of them is just a mid-range deck. There's no Heart Control here whatsoever. Identity Vault has fallen down, and the few control deck that exist are basically Palpatine Yellow is pretty much the least control of the Palpatine decks. Hera Dead Vault is is also more and more build more of a proactive decks, kind of a. So there's also very few real aggro decks. We have Sabine Isia, which is definitely aggro. We have Garrett Isia, which is sort of aggro, but more mid-range than aggro. And then we got Cad Bane, which is also quite of a mid-rangey aggro deck. So the problem I have with this meta, and this is the problem I had with Star Wars Unlimited for a while, is that even though there's a wide variety of different decks that exist, overall, all those decks are just different flavor, different degrees of mid-range decks, which is a little bit sus and not ideal in my opinion. And also in terms of leader diversity, you see, once you actually regroup the different version of Hantu, you actually realize that Hantu represents more than 50%, 15.6% of the meta. That means that basically the message is clear. Hantu is the best leader in the set, in the game. And the only reason why it was held back in the last few sets was because basically Tarkin Town was out of the picture. But now that was because Tarkin Town was really, really prevalent. But now that we saw Tarkin Town decks seeing less and less play, we'll see Hantu really, really going up and dominating the meta with more than 50% in the case. So even though the deck diversity looks extremely healthy, the leader diversity is not so great, and the diversity of different playstyle is not really great, especially if you compare this to previous meta, which I think had a much better diversity in terms of different decks you can build, you can play. With that being said, once again, it doesn't say the whole picture. This is only the top 10 most represented deck. If you look at the overall meta, you would see that it is possible to play Hard Control, even though it's extremely niche. It is possible to play aggro in a lot of other builds, but it's a very mid-rangey based meta. So it is what it is, and this is what you should be expecting if you're heading into the sector qualifier in Munich. You need to have a plan against those two decks. There's some stuff here that are we're seeing Cad Bane, Tarkin Town definitely not seeing as much play as it used to. So this picture here represent all the accumulated top 8s throughout the season since 4th has been banned. So obviously there are certain trends, definitely decks like Talzin Red, which is not even on the top 10, is definitely on the rise that you have to pay attention to. Sabine ECL, Hantu ECL is also on the rise. So those kind of decks you gotta be careful. Also, Thrawn is not represented in the top 10, but if you look at the overall meta, he's in the top 10. So Thrawn, don't forget about Thrawn Data Vault. He's a real deck. And yeah, that's basically it for this video. Let me know in the comments below if you have any additional, if one of your deck has been showcased in this video and you would like to have additional insights to how you build a deck and certain choices you've made, feel free to post it in the comments below. And for anybody who is preparing for Munich, I tell them good luck, and hopefully you have a lot of fun, and hopefully this video has helped you visualizing the meta a little bit more clearly. Thank you so much for following that video, and I'll see you next time.